All right, good afternoon, everyone. We will call our council meeting of May 12th to order. And a reminder to council to disclose any pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. No. Seeing none?
No, right here.
Yeah.
Just declare confidential just for closed section. Part of the closed session, just portion B.
Okay, so noted. Got that? Good. So we'll go to adoption of the agenda. Todd? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. We'll go to the council minutes of April 25th. Mover and seconded by that, Smokey and Lon. Any questions on the minutes, comments? 25th. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Go to the minutes of 29th, April 29th. Moved by Todd, second by Rod. Any comments or questions on those minutes? Call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Public meetings, no public meetings, no delegations. Consideration of agenda items. Jenn Burnett, Bruce County Senior Development Planner. Welcome, Jenn. And this is application, quite a lengthy application, S 2023-0008 and Z 2023-0010, Dylan Earl. You're on, Jenn. Yeah, you can.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. So this is a proposal to create a 7-lot privately serviced residential subdivision, and on a waterfront property that fronts onto Simpson Avenue and Quarry Crescent. And part of the process requires an amendment to the zoning bylaw to change a portion of the property from rural to resort residential. And a portion of that resort residential would be zoned to prohibit any sort of development or site alteration. And that's in consideration of the natural heritage features on the property. So this application was brought to council back in November 27th, 2023. And at that time, it was identified that additional information was required to evaluate the proposal. So the applicant went back and further did some studies addressing stormwater management, the environmental impact assessment, and then the coastal impact assessment were peer reviewed, and further clarification was provided to the satisfaction of both the peer reviewers, the municipality, and county staff. So now the applications are being brought back before you for a decision. So the property is designated under the county official plan as rural recreational, and there's a hazard land designation on that lot associated with the water course. Within the rural recreation designation, it does consider development through a plan of subdivision, provided that studies have been conducted to demonstrate that the property can support the type of development that is being proposed, and that the natural environment remains protected. So when we look at the proposal for 7-lot plan of subdivision, we would consider that to be a low density development, and we can see that it is aligned with the intent of that rural recreation lot creation policy. So with the peer reviews that were done on the studies came recommendations that certain measures be employed or used to protect the natural heritage features on the property, protect future property owners from any of the natural hazards associated with any wave uprush or the water course that's on their property. And all of those measures can be captured as conditions of draft approval within the preliminary approval and implemented through a subdivision agreement with the municipality. So within that area of the municipality, there are no municipal water or sewers available. So that development would proceed on private individual wells and septic systems. That can be further addressed through the subdivision agreement, as can stormwater management. So the engineering reports were reviewed on behalf of the municipality by an engineering firm, and they after some discussion with the developer's engineer, agree the measures that are being proposed can be implemented on site. So the site itself was actually designed around the natural heritage features, and within your agenda package, there is a zoning, an amending zoning bylaw, and the schedule there shows just how much of the property is being rezoned as no development or site alteration. So there are there are smaller pockets of that property that are being zoned for that that resort residential zone through the amending bylaw, and that comes from the recommendations in the environmental impact study. With the proposed development, there's also an associated tree retention and preservation plan, and that clearly delineates the areas where tree clearing can occur on the property, and it also identifies development envelopes so that at the building permit stage, municipal staff are aware of where the house and the septic system can be placed on the properties once created. As part of our circulation, we send our applications both to Saugeen Ojibwe Nation as well as the historic Saugeen Métis. So you can see in the agenda package that that comments were provided by both the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation Environment Office as well as the historic Saugeen Métis, and they both commented on species at risk and noted they have concerns related to the loss of biodiversity in the Hay Bay area. SON Environmental Office noted concern with potential impacts on ecological features and species of importance to SON that are present at the site. Their comments did recommend refusal of the application, but noted that if council should approve the application, certain measures be implemented. So those measures are captured in the conditions of draft approval, as well as in the zoning bylaw through the no development areas. There's also development envelopes that have been established through the property, as I did mention, and the conditions of draft approval require that the subdivision agreement implement mitigation measures outlined in the environmental impact study. So there's a process that the developer has to go through. The conditions of draft approval, it's a conditional approval. So in order for them to be able to register the site and to create the lots, they have to enter into the site plan agreement, and they also have to meet a number of those conditions. They have to meet all the conditions that are listed in that approval. And that includes addressing species at risk legislation through the MECP and having the site cleared to say that there's no species of concern there that are going to be impacted by the development. And that is another way that SON, the environmental office at SON, as well as historic Saugeen Métis, their concerns are being addressed. As I mentioned, a stormwater management study and a coastal impact assessment were completed, and it locates the residential development outside of any hazardous areas, and that's in accordance with provincial policy as well as county policy. So the The amending bylaw, if approved by council, will basically zone the lands as resort residential and environmental hazard. So what's on the property right now is a rural zone, a resort residential zone, as well as a hazard. There's no change proposed to the hazard area zoning because that hazard is directly related to the watercourse feature. The resort residential zone where the houses are permitted to be built, where those development envelopes are, will be a straight resort residential zone. And then the remainder of the property will be zoned what we call R2A, which is a resort residential special. So that's where the limitations come in and create that no development zone. We cannot incorporate the that no development zone with the hazard zone because the no development zone is associated with the environmental features. It's not technically described as a hazard. So you can't combine the two of them, right? So it's the natural heritage features that are to be protected, as indicated by the EIS, will be part of that R2A development zone. In terms of comments, prior to the public meeting, we did receive comments from Bell Canada, Bruce Telecom, Hydro One. They have no concerns or comments with the proposal. The municipality provided general comments with respect to the development itself. Historic Saugeen Métis provided comments that they do not support the proposed development as presented, citing reasons related to Eastern Massasauga rattlesnake habitat, wetland evaluation, karst assessment, biodiversity concerns, present development impacts, Historic Saugeen Métis community significance, and high Métis First Nations archaeological potential. So through this process, the developer has engaged both with SON and Historic Saugeen Métis. And the developer has provided comments in response to responses to all of the comments generated by the application. And the Historic Saugeen Métis did provide further comments in response to the correspondence that the developer did send out. And they note that HSM does not believe the concerns raised have been sufficiently addressed and does not support the proposed development. The comments provided in response to HSM's concerns fail to appreciate HSM's distinct knowledge and viewpoint as an Indigenous community. So one of the things that we look at when we're evaluating an application is effectively the science behind it. The Historic Saugeen Métis concerns are largely based on protection of the biodiversity in the habitat. We have a consulting biologist who has conducted an environmental impact study and has completed an evaluation of the impact that the proposed development would have on the natural heritage features. We have the county's consulting biologist who has extensively peer reviewed the environmental impact study and has come back with provided the mitigation measures are employed through the subdivision agreement, then the development would not that it's not going to have any impact, but the impact is mitigated to the satisfaction of what the intent of the province. So we're not dismissing anyone's concerns, but where we have continued opposition, we have to look at we have to critically evaluate whether the scientifically is it going to cause an impact. So there are measures in place to protect the Eastern Massasauga rattlesnake habitat. So the MECP is involved. There's a requirement in the conditions of draft approval for sign off from the MECP when it comes to species at risk. So species at risk is something that is the province is responsible for. It's not something that the municipality is in terms of decision making and granting any sort of relief for species at risk. That's not something that the municipality or the county can do. That's entirely a provincial power. So further to the comments, when we look at the Sauganajowie Nation Environment Office comments, they're not supportive of the development, but they do note that if council should consider approval, that there are conditions that they want council to impose, and that would be as well as Bruce County. There's a no shoreline development condition without exception on the approval, so that is reflected in the zoning bylaw. Anything to do with the drainage feature, mitigation measures need to be employed. That's been done. The proponent must provide additional background data to qualify thermal characterization of watercourses. That information was provided by the developer's consultant directly to SON, and we did get a response letter back from them dated February 19th, stating that they have no further comments on the application. So and then we did get communication back, confirmation that SON is satisfied with the archaeological report. They noted that it is acceptable to them. And just as a follow-up, comments were submitted at the public meeting by Fran Sotka, Rob Davis, Ron Sotka, Joel Zachary, and Karen Phillips. They attended the public meeting and made oral presentations to council. We haven't received any written submissions for this application. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We have a recommendation here. Thank you, Jen. It has been demonstrated that the proposed application with the provincial policy statement 2024 Bruce County official plan and has regard for the municipality of Northern Bruce Peninsula zoning bylaw. It is recommended that council approve zoning bylaw amendment Z 2023-010 and the necessary bylaw be placed on the upcoming agenda for adoption, and the council support the conditions of draft approval for a plan of subdivision file S 2023-008 for lands described as TP Bury WBR Part Block 13, further identified as 35 Simpson Ave. Just a mover and seconder to bring that forward for discussion. I'm on. Todd. Go ahead. Any questions on the application? Yes, Smokey?
I guess I would like more information exactly when you say, so no development or site alteration, because this isn't like it says waterfront. It isn't really. I'm very familiar with this little bay. It's like a wetland, grasses. It's not like a lot of our waterfront where there's sheets of rocks and whatever. So I noticed that each land piece is allowed like a meter wide path. It says to the water. So, I mean, people aren't going to go down there and just stand and look. Like no development or site alteration, like does that, because people will, we all know people, they'll put up a little deck, they'll put out a little dock, they'll have a kayak carrier there. I mean, what exactly is permitted under this no development or site alteration, and who's going to like monitor that? It's okay to have this no development area, but we know people are going to head to the water or the swamp or whatever you want to call it.
Go ahead, Jen.
Thank you. So The no development and no site alteration area was something that came out of the environmental impact study. So the assessment there is that the features can't support any changes. So in the study, it shows that there are pretty much 3 areas. So I believe it's lots 1, 2, and 7 would have access to the water. The rest of the lots would not for any like you wouldn't be able to clear a path on lots 3, 4, and 5 to get to the water. You're not allowed to. You're allowed to walk down there, but you can't alter anything so that you could clear a path to take your canoe down. Like when water levels are higher, and you could actually.
Is that realistic at all? Like I just don't think that's realistic that someone's going to buy a property that they're probably going to pay a lot of money for, so-called on the water. And they're not going to go down there unless they take a little wiggly trail down. Like it just seems really unrealistic, this no development, no site alteration, because I totally agree that that ecosystem is fragile.
Mhm.
Yeah, it just seems so it's only 3 lots that are allowed, like an actual 1 meter prepared path. The rest just make their own way.
Yeah, you would. It's just for walking through the back of your property.
Okay, because they're going to consider it the front of their property.
Oh, yeah.
That's just the facts. And these, you said there was 2 consulting biologists. Is it possible to see that report?
Yeah, all the reports are available online.
Okay, I'd be very interested in seeing how that was mitigated in that area, because
Mhm.
it, like I said, the idea that people aren't going to make some sort of a path, make their presence known that in those areas, to me is pretty unrealistic. Okay, thank you.
Just further to that, the conditions of draft approval require that that an advisory clause be registered on title to notify potential purchasers that the specific lots have specific restrictions. So people would be made aware before they purchase the lot, as well as the zoning on the properties would be an indication as well that that nothing can be touched within outside of the identified development envelope.
Thank you.
Oh, Todd?
You go ahead. A few concerns I guess I've got, and some sort of questioning. Hay Bay is a fairly heavily utilized cottage site right now, and you can see that in what's happening with the water quality and the shoreline and things like that. This little piece we're talking about has been there since they started selling cottage lots there, and it was nobody ever thought we'll build there, because essentially it was water course and swamp, bulrushes and all that. So it certainly wouldn't, the typical swampland in Florida type thing is what you see. A few years ago, I guess back in the 90s, there was a subdivision that's there now called Dugillis subdivision on the west end of Hay Bay. It started out with lots that were, and I think I'm close here. They were originally 1 acre, and at the time, planning department said that's too small. We can't have, and I'm not sure the numbers, but I want to say there were 35 1 acre lots in the subdivision. Planning department at that time said that's too small to support that sort of development. and the lots went up to 1 hectare apiece, and that effectively knocked the number in half, the number of lots that would be there. And there were conditions put on those lots. They had to have two sites for septic beds, for the first 10 years, and then they would build a site, whatever the time zone is, and there were actually envelopes designated that you could build, and only 2 or 3 per lot. And this is on a 2.5 acre parcel of land. So here we're looking at this thing, and then we've got 7 lots, and I think it said 5 hectares. So we're very small, sort of, even if it was all buildable, and it's not, because it is wetland and then stream course and things like that. So it is a fragile ecosystem. It is a wetland, and that's one of the things they tell us. We shouldn't be sort of impinging on wetlands when we can get away with it. And I guess the last thing, I know there was a public meeting and we had neighborhood input. We haven't had any input that I've seen on this new proposal. And I think we should, because this is new to me in the last 3 days. So I'm certainly not going to make a decision right now because I haven't sort of digested the whole thing. So I'd like to see us sort of get the public involved in this again, because there are changes. From my perspective, I'm not really in favor of it for the reasons I said it. I think it's just too small. I could see where it might support the original person that bought that lot and built one house. You could probably get away with that. But even with the conditions and here, it's not going to support 7. So I'm not really in favor at this point.
Well,
I'll just kind of follow up with what Rod said. My initial question when I was looking at this is, what is the history of this area? And why, when all the other lots were divvied up, was this left as it was? Like, I kind of wonder, are we reinventing the wheel? Was this left the way it was just for a reason? And then my other question to go along with that is, if for whatever reason we do say yes, is there any other areas in Bruce County like this where we have no development shoreline, where we've allowed people to build on the back of their lots? Like, when we look at something else as a reference point to see how it worked or didn't work? Like, are you aware of anything, Jenn, that is similar to this?
would Greenick be one, Jenn? Or it's quite a restrictive subdivision.
It is, there are quite a few restrictions on that one. I'm not familiar with any other development in Bruce County. What we typically look at is every property is a site-specific evaluation. So we look at it based on the merits of that property against the studies that have done specifically for that property. So we wouldn't make a recommendation based on what's happened on another lot, because the studies that have come back have said it can be developed if you follow these processes. So
then what was the basis for deciding on 7? Like if I look, I'm not sure how the numbers are with what I'm looking at right now. Was 1 start on Simpson Avenue and go around to Corey Crescent? If that is the case, then like, what is the actual size of, say, lot 1 and lot 6 and 7? Like, when you take away the no development, how much area are you actually left with? Because I know the numbers that they're saying, where are my notes? About the size of the lots, I'm sure that includes the no development area as well, right?
yes.
Yep.
So the size of the lots are based on what the municipality's zoning bylaw has indicated in the R2 zone. And so the minimum would be 3,000 square meters. And the lots, the smallest one is a little bit over the 3,000 square meters, and with the largest one being, I think, the 12 or 13,000 square meters. And each lot does include no development zones within their total lot area. So that the area that they have for development comes from the EIS as well as from the wildland fire assessment. So, you know, they've have to have so much of a tree clearing so that if there happens to be a fire in the area, that the houses are protected, but they're not too large of an area where you know, the biodiversity of the area is threatened because too many trees have been removed.
So you're saying that area does include the no development or doesn't?
The lots do include the no development.
Right.
So the total lot area, so starting at the minimum of 3,000 square meters, would include developable area as well as the non-developable area. And there's one lot that includes the water course hazard feature.
Right.
I think you might have touched on this already, but would you mind clarifying again if a karst assessment is required on this or not? It was kind of unclear. I know it says the county maps don't show karst, but the engineer did note minor karst concerns. So is one required or not?
So through the studies that would have been done, they would have done a review to see whether or not a karst assessment would have been required. If it had been, they would have conducted one.
Any other comments?
I was just curious. Like we're in the process of a new official plan, which seems to put more it's more weight on water courses. Would the new plan, if it was adopted, have any impact on this subdivision?
I can't speak to that. I'm not 100% familiar with those policies, as well as when council's considering an application, council considers the application based on the policies that are in effect at the time.
Thank you.
Any further questions? So we do have a recommendation, which I have read. And vote on the recommendation, Alex, the original recommendation.
Mr. Mayor, council can make amendments as well.
Yes,
So
yes.
It's up to, it depends on
Yeah.
what council would like.
Yeah, and that's an opportunity to, yes, go ahead, Jen.
I just wanted to point out that there's an error in the recommendation. It should be 25 Simpson Avenue, not 35.
Oh,
That was my error.
fair enough, so noted. So does anyone would anyone like to make an amendment to the motion before we vote? On the original?
I, at this point, would not be prepared to support the motion. As far as the amendment, I think, I'm not sure at this point, if we're looking for more information on it. That
So the information we're looking for is,
I want to look at this biodiversity. I want more information on exactly what no development means. I would not support the motion as it stands. I'm not going to make an amendment to it. That's my position.
Rod?
Yeah, I wouldn't support it as it stands now, and only because I'd like to digest it a little more. I'm still kicking it around here and not quite
So
sure.
is
Yeah.
deferral something?
Deferral would be a way, and we might get a little more this will be in the public right away. I think we'll get more
Yeah,
feedback.
because
Right.
it is
Yeah.
recommended for approval.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, that's what I was wondering, if you want to vote on the original motion and then go to deferral, or can we just go to deferral now?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If council wishes to defer the motion, we'll just need a motion to defer. Just note that the motion will reappear on an agenda in the future, exactly as it stands today, unless council makes an amendment to it. So if we defer, we're just deferring the decision.
So we already have, there's a mover and seconder on for the recommendation here now.
Mhm.
So can we just ask them for, if they're in favor of deferral?
Yes, I think that's okay.
Okay. And who is it, Lindsay? Okay, so deferral sound good to,
Thanks, that's majority council wants.
and so we'll sort of have a date here to bring it back to just do we want any further comment with regards to the reason for deferral?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it might be helpful maybe to Jen if we got a good understanding of what further information council was looking for. And that if we defer the decision and bring it back, maybe Jen can bring that information when it's back on the next council agenda.
So you would like that as well, Jen, probably?
Yes, please.
Yes. So if we could just give Jen some idea of what we're thinking of in the deferral, asking what information we're asking for, additional information we're asking for.
One question.
Yes, go ahead.
The MECPs are, when will they make their decision as to the site development compliance?
So that would be through the process of fulfilling the conditions of draft approval prior to the county approving the plan for registration. So
Okay, so it'd be after our.
yeah, after the conditional approval.
Yeah.
Prior to the subdivision being actually registered.
Okay. And the three extra site visits being done this spring, when are those to be completed? I believe in terms of looking at the rattlesnakes and
Yeah, so there's a window for investigation, and I'm not familiar with the exact time period, but they are typically done in the spring, and so usually the reports are available by the fall.
Okay, so Rod or Smokey, would you have any idea on, just give me some idea of, or Jen, I guess some idea what we're thinking?
Yeah, well, I'll and it won't fit into what we're trying to do here. But my concerns are the number of lots and the size of the lots. And secondary is the impact on that wetland by doing 7 lots. So we can't really fit that into what we've got here, but
I guess those assessments have already been done.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those questions are already answered. Jen, from what I can see.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The peer reviews have supported that the proposed lot sizes can accommodate development and protect the natural heritage features as well, and be located outside of any hazard area.
That may well be on, but to me, though, that result defies common sense. When you have 7 people in that area that comes down into like an up high shape, and you have 7 households that are going to converge, let's face it, to everybody goes, yeah. I just don't agree. That's just right, plain and simple. I do not agree. And I understand that our job is to support our planners. And I certainly do respect the process. But just knowing the area, mainly by kayak or whatever, I can't in myself agree that that area can support that many residents or cottages without doing significant damage to what Métis, as far as I'm concerned, correctly say, very important diversity of species. I never go in there that I don't see a duck family, otters, blue heron, all everything you can think of is in that little swampy area. So that's not technically, I guess, acceptable. It's just what I know.
Okay, Rod.
So we sort of to build on that, Smokey, when we originally saw this, whatever it was a year and a bit ago, I didn't really expect it to come back in the same format. I kind of thought that maybe they would rethink it and say, well, we could put 2 places on here. We're just going to put our house on there, whatever. So that being said, I guess the only way to bring it back to the fore is I would vote no right now on this, on the whole motion.
Well, if you're going to just vote no on it, I mean, then there's an appeal period, Jen, which we would go through, and it would be up to us then to support our position. If we vote no on this, so, and because the county will not be supporting us on this, they're recommending approval, right?
That's correct.
Well, if we defer, then perhaps maybe the developer can adjust their thinking on this a little bit to convince us that it is viable. Because
I think the developer has taken his position. This is his position, Smokey, I think here, as far as I can see.
well, we all have to change our position here and there. But
This is his position. Anyway, we're just trying to think of some. Pardon me?
If we defer it, I don't think the developer is going to change his position. Chris,
Well,
he'll wait for our final decision anyway.
if you believe all the statements in the form that they're presented, this developer cites that they are appreciative of the biodiversity, that they are appreciative of this. Maybe we're just asking them to take another look in their judgment, how, visit the property, and they bought it. Obviously, they know the property, but maybe they should be doing what I do and kayak in there. So their statements profess a deep love of the biodiversity there. So maybe they need to look into their own beliefs, if what they've presented in this is true. And maybe they need to take another look at it if we feel it's not really viable and that it will have an impact, and a very negative impact on that little wetland. Maybe I'm just asking them to look beyond and see if maybe less impact could happen with less sites, something like that. Just sort of, please take another look at this. Okay, you've done studies, you've done this, maybe you've done everything right according to the strict planning rules, and they're all there and for a reason, and I understand that. But there's a lot of words in here that would make a person believe, reading them, that they are very concerned about the environment here. And I think as local people, we're just saying we are, and we're not feel the same way. Maybe could you take another look at it?
I guess, Jen, just from your perspective, we're just from what you've heard, if we defer, what would you suggest we say? If we defer, and I mean, I guess people are saying they want to see a reduction in lots, which I mean, the lot formation has been put forward by the developers, so I don't know how effective that conversation will be, but if we say defer, just to maybe give even council a chance to think for another couple weeks on the matter before a final decision is made. And I guess, as I think most of us know, for us to say no, and we do go to an appeal, which I'm assuming this person definitely would, because they've put a lot of money into this thing. So, and what our obligations would be if we have to go to a hearing is we would have to hire professional people to support our position and counter the already scientific evidence that's been given by the other consultants and the peer review, all the peer review that's been done. So, so for just to say deferral, is that good enough, do you think? And bring it back in 2 weeks? Is deferral saying, is that good enough? Or should we have some reason to say if that's where we're sitting? Or we can vote on the original motion. I guess as well, maybe we should have voted on the original motion, and if we lost it, we could go to deferral, I guess. But we have two people now that have said they will agree with deferral, so I would like to probably take that route if we can come up with some.
I think that if you look to deferral of your decision today, then some direction needs to be provided to staff to bring back the information. What I'm hearing is that the council would like more clarification on what no development really means, within the context of the zoning.
Okay.
And that
well, that's a good, yeah.
And maybe a bit of clarification on the number of lots and the size of the lots and the impact. As I mentioned, the zoning bylaw prescribes the minimum lot sizes, and when the environmental impact study is conducted, it's conducted on a vacant lot, and it identifies areas that can be developed. So that's part of how the developer came up with the 7 lots and the configuration for them. But I can reach out for more information on that and bring back further clarification.
Yeah, on the no development and the number of lots. Yeah, so, okay, I think we've already had a pretty good, if we're not going.
I just had one more question.
Oh, go ahead, yeah.
So when you do this rezoning, and it's no development, what is the process for compliance with that?
So when council approves a site-specific zoning bylaw, it then becomes council's responsibility to enforce it if the property owner isn't complying. And it's the same with the subdivision agreement. When you have a subdivision agreement that identifies terms and conditions for development of the lots, if the property owner isn't abiding by that, then it's the municipality's responsibility to take action.
So we would have to have somebody on staff that would go in there, and I assume they'd have to come in by water, whatever, and have the expertise to discern whether whatever was happening there was in compliance with the zoning of no development or alteration.
Typically, from what I've seen, is there's it depends on how your bylaw enforcement bylaw is structured, where if it's a complaint basis only, you provide a response versus a proactive bylaw where if the bylaw officer sees that something is in contravention of the zoning, then they would undertake an investigation.
Each landowner would have to originally have a pretty specific idea of what is allowed and what is not. It would have to be set out pretty clearly, which is what you're going to find out for us.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. We will, Sorry, so you have that, Alex, the information that's required?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may, what I have is that the motion is deferred to a later date where further clarification can be provided on the no development context of the zoning and number of lots. Does that sound correct?
Sounds good. And, yeah. All right, so we'll vote on that. Is that okay with, Lamont and Todd?
The only question I have is, do we add some sort of a bylaw to cover enforcement of that? Because it's all fine and dandy to say that, but if there's no teeth to how we enforce it, then it's going to be whoever does something and they'll ask for forgiveness later, and then the damage will be done.
Jen, so with regards to, yes, go ahead.
So we have numerous subdivisions within the municipality that fall under different zoning provisions. Like this one, you're going to have zoning provisions that state the no development in certain areas. When we do receive a complaint in our other subdivisions, we do have bylaw come out and investigate that. And if we find that they are not within the appropriate zoning, we request that they change it up to the point of finding them. And that is our process throughout the entire municipality, and this would be no different.
And I can just make a reference to Greenock. I mean, the people watch. And if there's something going on the shoreline, because it's no development there on the shoreline, we hear about it pretty quick. So, yeah. All right, so we'll vote on that motion. Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you, Alex. All in favor, deferral. Motion is carried. Thank you, Jen. Much appreciated. But you're not done yet.
Can I just make one point?
Yes, you can.
And the developer will be in the loop on this. With this, if you know, is he online even? I don't know, but
I don't know if the developer is online.
yeah, sort of should let him know.
Yeah, we'll either way.
Yeah.
We'll reach out. Jen or our staff will reach out to the developer. Okay. All right, next, item number B on our agenda is Jen as well, and application Z 2024-024, Steve Levack. And this is an application. Town plot very EBR, part lots 45 to 47. Front Street, RP3R 292 parts 2, 3, and 6, and RP3R 474 parts 3, Tobermory, and the address is 2 Front Street. So Jen, you're on this one as well, please.
Thank you. So council considered this application from Steve Levack at the June 10th public meeting. The decision on the application was deferred because comments hadn't been submitted by the Ministry of Transportation. So because the property fronts onto an MTO controlled roadway, comments are required from their office. So this is a commercial property with zoning in place that recognizes the existing residential use. the way that the zoning has been applied to the property means that an amendment is required to permit the existing dwelling to be rented out on a weekly basis. So what the property owner wanted to do was have an Airbnb, but because the situation didn't meet the requirements of the short-term accommodation licensing bylaw, the applicant applied for permission to basically, use that property as a rental, a short-term accommodation rental. So the application is proposing to remove the holding provision that restricts the property to just a residential use, to permit the dwelling to be rented out on a short-term basis, as well as to permit a private park to be used for passive recreation, and it would be by guests of that rental cottage, as well as the Blue Bay Motel, which is located at 32 Bay Street. So the individual the company that owns the Blue Bay Motel also owns this property. So through this process, the owner has been working with the MTO, and the proposal has been clarified to align with the MTO corridor management policies, and using zoning and site plan control. So through the process, it has been agreed and implemented through zoning and site plan control tools that there will be no water-based activities permitted from the property. There will be a washroom on facilities on site, garbage containers on site. All of the parking on site will be used just for the guests of the tourist cabin, and any users that are staying at the Blue Bay Motel would only be able to access the property by walking. There's no parking available for those guests. The MTO did review the draft bylaw as well as the site plan agreement that was drafted by municipal staff, and they have no further concerns with the proposal. They will have to, once the approvals have been received from the municipality, then MTO permits will be required to define the permitted uses on site. So there is a site-specific bylaw for your consideration today, and what it does is it limits the uses on site to a detached residential dwelling that may be used for short-term accommodation. So if the property is sold and purchased, and it meets the requirements for through the short-term accommodation bylaw, then it could be used for short-term accommodation. So we're giving some flexibility there, and it also permits a detached dwelling with 3 bedrooms to be used as a tourist home. Within the definition of the municipality's bylaw, it identifies a tourist home as having 4 bedrooms, but it's not the intent to intensify the use on site. They just want to be able to use what's there for short-term rentals, and that would be the 3 bedrooms. So it's not the intent to intensify that use. And a park is a permitted use in the C1 zone. But what this bylaw is doing is it is limiting the area of a park to the 650 square meters that was landscaped, and it's limiting it to passive recreation. So you're basically allowed to attend the site and watch the sunset. No active activities. And further to that, the site plan agreement addresses hours of operation, as well as fencing and screening, landscaping, and anything that needs to be captured within the site plan agreement that the zoning bylaw doesn't address. The site-specific bylaw also recognizes the dwelling, the existing setbacks for that dwelling, like it is where it is. There's no proposal to for an addition or anything like that. The driveway location is recognized where it is. There's no proposal to move it. There isn't really a need to do that either. There is going to be a holding symbol placed on the property again, and that is going to require an archaeological assessment to be conducted prior to any proposed development, if there is any in the future. So when we evaluated the application before, we looked at the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act as well, because this is a commercial property. So the applicant did hire someone to provide an accessibility review report, and any AODA requirements would be required to be addressed through the site plan agreement, because that's the appropriate tool. We don't include AODA requirements within a zoning bylaw. We had neighbors express concerns with the private park use proposed at the site. As I did mention, it is a permitted use in the C1 zone. And so to minimize the impact to the neighbors, that bylaw does scope down the permitted area for the park to 650 square meters, and for passive recreation, and garbage, the operation of the site, washroom, and hours of operation are regulated in the site plan agreement. So agency comments that were submitted since the public meeting, they were from the Ministry of Transportation, and they are supportive of the proposal subject to conditions that they've outlined and have been incorporated both into the zoning as well as the site plan agreement. Full comments are attached for your review. And Owen Sound Transportation Company, just after the meeting, we received comments from them related to the proposed uses on shore and in water, presenting safety hazards to the public, OSTC crew and vessels. And they may impede ferry operations, as well as concerns related to washroom, garbage, and parking facilities. So within the Ministry of Transportation comment letter back to us, they did speak on behalf of the Owen Sound Transportation Company, and both agencies are supportive of the proposal as long as those conditions they've identified are implemented. And then Brian Gage, 12 Front Street, Tobermory, did provide comments dated June 10th, and expressing concerns with commercial development along the shoreline. And those full comments are attached for your review. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. So this zoning bylaw amendment is for approval. I've read the recommendation. Is there a mover and seconder to bring it forward for discussion? Rod? Todd? Any questions, comments? Questions or comments?
There's a lot of information on this file. And we've just received it at the end of last week, but in the site plan, does it state that there has to be a fence 2 meters high for the length of the property line?
I believe it does, yes.
Okay, just want to ensure that it does for the length of the property line, because like we dealt with this prior, and the owner had gone ahead and they did walkways and whatnot, like obviously with no consideration for the neighbors. So I think that should be in our minds when we're looking at this, that there was already some not any consideration for the neighbors, which is not a good place to start in my mind. And the other thing is, how do we expect people, like, how are they going to keep people out of the water? Because that's a real concern there. And it's totally legitimate. And then you could even, like, if you've got people renting as an STA and they're allowed to park there, I mean, almost everybody brings a kayak or something with them. Like, has there been anything, like, are they gonna monitor that? Has there been any consideration, again, in the, I mean, we're already spending like a small fortune in this municipality on bylaw, and we can't even start to cover some of the things that are happening, and not during 9 to 5 either. So I'm just curious how they intend to monitor that area, that there isn't people in the water, that there's not fires, that there's not all the things that happen when, first of all, people rent STAs, which we just had a license appeal this morning about, and property owners that had no idea maybe what was going on when they rent a property. But this is also going to have the added component of other people coming to it. So I'm just curious what's in place for that.
Go ahead, Jen.
So the site plan agreement does identify that no water activities are permitted.
Exactly.
And my understanding is that the owner of the Blue Bay Motel has it's not a contract, but it's a one-page letter that specifically says what they can and cannot do there. They will have staff visiting the site, I believe, twice a day to check for garbage and maintain the washrooms and conduct a visit.
Any further questions, Amon?
Sorry, I just wanted to clarify on Smokey's first point about the buffer between the commercial and residential property. Does the site plan specifically say a fence, or does it say a buffer, which could be vegetation or a fence?
Yeah, so I believe it, in the first recommendation report, there was a recommendation for a continuous board fence, or it could be the vegetative screen with a minimum, I believe it was 2 meters at the beginning. So with the plantings, if it's going to be a vegetative fencing screen, it would be planted in accordance with that type of tree. The recommended plantings, that's staggered so that it achieved a continuous buffer.
When you consider we have about this much topsoil
Yeah,
on the peninsula,
Mhm.
I think it has to specify a board fence.
I would agree as well. That was my concern as well. If we decide to go ahead with this, I do think it should be a board fence. So vegetation fence, I mean, it's nice. I mean, I understand, there's more natural look to it, but it's a lot easier to just go to a lot more potential for disruption to the neighbors.
And that can be specified in the site plan agreement.
All right. Any further questions, Rob?
Just a concern about the washroom. And if you had any input there, and I see the proponent is behind you, he may answer if, and then I guess what I'm saying, I don't want to see porta potties.
Yeah,
So the washroom facility would be I believe it's a portable unit, but it's not the standard blue construction portable toilet. It has to be wheelchair accessible. So it would be a special unit, and it is going to be removed at the end of every season.
I guess, yeah, is that what you're the owners, right? So is that what you,
They're the neighbors.
pardon me? Oh, you're the neighbors, okay. Okay, so, okay. So that's your understanding then, Jen, of the washroom facility, okay? Okay. Todd?
I just have one comment with the site plan control. I'm reading it right. This is on page 28 of your report. It says, contain a provision requiring the posting of signs noting hazards associated with swimming and prohibiting the launch of watercraft at the private park. Should we not be prohibiting swimming as well at the park? Because both go hand in hand, and I know swimming, or if we're saying that it's a hazard and putting the sign up as such, should we not make it simple? This is just for the park. Prohibit both with the concerns raised by the Owen Sound Transportation Company? That's just, because if we don't spell that out here, I don't see how, I don't know, I see swimming being, if we're saying that it's a hazard, we know now that it could be a problem. Why not just eliminate it right now?
What's your thought on that, Jen?
The site plan agreement could be amended to reflect that.
They didn't want any activity there. I didn't. I guess.
It's prohibited. You can allow it by this site plan agreement.
Yeah, but I didn't think the Owen Sound Transportation Company.
They didn't know. They did.
They didn't want any activity there. Okay. Okay. Any further comments, questions? I'm on.
Quick question. Sorry, was a traffic or pedestrian study ever conducted? I think that was mentioned by staff comments last time we saw this.
It was not, one was not done. It was not a requirement of the Ministry of Transportation. They did not ask for it. That's something that staff had indicated, I believe, maybe required. And the municipality did not request one for the purposes of the site plan agreement.
Okay. Okay, it's not a public meeting, but did you have one question? Yes, okay.
How are you gonna stop people on the water? You're not gonna stop them, no sign under a branch, no swimming, going in the water, everybody's on a loudspeaker, OTC, OSTC, ITO, public comments, bad idea, worst location, cargo carrier, they're going in the water, little signs on us stop.
Yeah.
The decision is simply common sense, realistically, right?
Okay,
Not a little sign.
He's created an opening for them to go in the water.
It's happening, it's just.
If they're, yeah, we move the rock that so they can.
all right. Okay, thank you. All right, there's any further comments? So the recommendation here, as I said, I've read the recommendation, it's for approval. We have a mover and seconder, we will call the vote. All in favor?
Sorry, one question. If we were to approve, would that be pending the changes that we wanted to the site plan agreement, such as like the requirement that it be fencing and not just like tree cover, things like that?
The site plan agreement is drafted by the municipality. So municipal staff under council's direction would make those changes.
We would alter those changes.
So also, so we'll have another look at, as a council, and I guess just a comment, because it's kind of, I mean, these things come back to council to approve or not to approve, but it just puts us in the situation that if we can't really, if we go against a planning report, then it puts us in an appeal situation, which we really can't afford to do many of them. And, you know, and then we certainly don't want to undermine our planning people either. But so do we as a council then get to look at this site plan? Because a lot of them we don't. It's produced by staff, and then that's fine, but maybe staff isn't as familiar with some of these areas as we are. I would just request that this site plan does come back to this council. Is that possible, or is that not part of the procedure?
So under the delegated authority of the clerk, she drafts and actually Smokey King. pump up here. Thanks. I'm just getting feedback from everybody. So, so under the delegated authority of the clerk, she actually does the incompletes and submits the site plan to the developer. So work back and forth that way. Hence why council has not seen it before. So, I believe we've had, some very good discussion on this. Ultimately, it's council's decision if you want to, request us to bring the site plan. However, it is, the clerk does have the delegated authority to complete this. We have some excellent templates. We've been working on this project for 2-3 years now, I believe. So, but ultimately it is up to council's decision if you wish to see this.
I think we would like to see the final site plan agreement on this, just because this one has been a pretty contentious one, and there's a lot of potential for, there's still a lot of issues with pedestrian safety and then protecting neighbors and stuff and the characteristics of the community. So I don't know if you need a motion, but yeah, I would.
I would approve of, would like a motion for this.
All right, can it be part of the motion or you want a separate motion?
Because you're dealing with you're dealing with a planning recommendation right now. It'd be good to actually have them as two separate.
Okay, so there's we actually already have a motion on the floor. So we can vote on this motion and then vote like but you want to know whether the site plan comes back or not. So if we can.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think my understanding is that council would like to vote on approving this. And then we are to bring back the site plan agreement for council to review.
Well, council's going to vote on whether we approve it or not.
Yes.
But one councillor has stated, maybe, and two have stated they would like to see.
So,
they would like to see the site plan back.
if I may ask Jenn a question, procedurally, how does that work? Do you need council approval today? And then the site plan agreement can be dealt with after, or is it together?
So I don't believe the bylaw is on the agenda for approval today.
No.
So before council considers approval of the bylaw at a future meeting, you could review the site plan agreement, the contents of that agreement first, and decide whether or not you wanted to approve the bylaw.
So if I may, Mr. Mayor, does it make sense to defer the decision and we'll pass a motion to bring back the site plan agreement? No.
No. Okay, I don't think so, maybe.
Okay.
This is a zoning amendment. We do want to continue on with the process. What you have on the floor right now is the from our county planner, and we should vote on that and move forward with the site plan. Council will still have another review of the site plan, and at that point the bylaw approval, but we don't want to defer this for in case of T hearings and things like that.
Yeah, okay, so I get that. But if I might just, before we vote on this, and Peggy, and just, I'm suggesting this perhaps, and Alex, I just like a kind of a consensus of council whether they would like to see the site plan back. You would?
Yes.
So, okay, so that is just a consensus. And we will now vote on the motion.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll vote on your motion. Okay, so we'll vote on the original motion. So as I said, I've read it and it's for approval and it's for 2 Front Street. And call a vote, all in favor. Opposed? The motion is carried. There'll be a further motion that the site plan, and Alex, I'll look to you for this, so the site plan agreement come back to council for review. Moved by Amon and second by Todd, that the site plan come back for council review, and that's on 2 Front Street on the zoning bylaw amendment, blah, 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 blah. Call the vote. All in favor. Motion carried. All right, thank you, Jen. Thank you, staff and council. So it's good. Okay, so we will go to item C on the agenda. And we'll get a mover and seconder to bring it forward, Todd and Amon. And this here is that council receives the bylaw enforcement officer appointments for 2025. And that bylaw is on further on in our agenda here. So any questions, comments on that one? All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Item D, CAO report, parking recommendation report. It is regarding 3 Centennial Drive and the demolition of that facility on the property, and that funding be included in the 2026 budget deliberations for a gravel parking lot, washroom facilities, and shuttle service located at 3 Centennial Drive. And that staff begin monitoring parking revenue performance post 2026 to build reserves for a permanent facility at 3 Centennial Drive, and that the expansion of the 213 Big Tub Road project be placed on hold and await further council direction through the strategic planning process. Mover and seconder for that one. Rod and Amon. Any further questions on that one? Yes.
It's gonna be my day. Because I do agree with the Centennial Drive report. As far as the parking issue on Big Tub Road, I think that we bought this property. I think at the very least that we should proceed with the rezoning for the open space for that. And then even may perhaps come up with some ideas, because if we leave it at this point and that we put it off, say to the next council or whatever, it'll be built up into something that we had no real idea of. Anyway, it'll become a bigger issue than it needs to be. And I think our general idea of, I think people now think we're going to increase parking or whatever, whereas I think a lot of us just thought of it as getting people off the road for safety issues. But at the very least, I think that we should proceed with the rezoning for the open space. That gives indication that we have no indications of development there or whatever, and then we can proceed with, if we want to come up with some ideas on the, like maybe pod parking or whatever, just some idea, so that, because what's would to my mind happen if we left this, it would end up being it being an issue where people hadn't were not even feel that they were registering on what we actually had planned, because it'll be built up into something. So it will we at least give some direction in what we were thinking. then, I mean, at least then the facts are there, not some idea or fear or whatever. So I think that we should continue with the zoning issue on the property that we bought, and then that will affirm that will not be developed into parking or whatever. And then we can think about, you know, if we come up with a decent plan, like a little pod, not that we would proceed in any way, but at least how do you ask for public input into something or whatever when you don't give them anything, any information to show what is possible. So I really don't think we need to defer this to any kind of strategic plan. I think we should proceed with the zoning, and then if we come up with something that we can present to the public, then, and if not, then the zoning's in place for that property, and someone in the future can decide as long as if we put the zoning in as no development, as open space, then that is complying with what the original owners wanted, and that they wanted it left as open space. So the rest of the report I have no issue with, but I really would not want us to sit here in limbo and everybody just sort of make up whatever they want in their minds for that.
Well, I'm not so sure about the planning or the like I think as far as the open space zoning is fine. I don't see probably a problem with that. However, I think the fact that we did visit the site, and given the concerns that have been expressed by the people, and I feel they are legitimate, quite frankly. I think we all know the issue with trespassing. We hear it every day. And so it's, as far as proceeding with this project right now with parking, I'm not there yet, for sure, or may never be. I don't know. But as far as having the property there, I have no problem having the property there as open space. That's fine. But to proceed on with
Well, that
the
would give them
parking.
some clarity,
Parking lot, I would not be.
because it was obvious they thought we were going to develop that open space into parking. So at least this way they know that's not the plan.
Yeah, that's kind of, and we've heard from the people down at the end of Big Top Road too, we had them as a delegation here, so they certainly expressed their concern and all the issues they have with people trespassing on the property as well. So and they did make a comment that I tend to agree with. And that is, you know, they are taxpayers of our community, and I think they do. I think we do need to have some regard, not some regard, a lot of regard for ratepayers. Tourism is a great thing for our community, our municipality, but I think we also have to have regard for the people that pay the taxes in our community as well. That's my 2 cents.
Many, many years from now, people may be happy that we have that.
I
Yeah,
agree, right
well,
there.
That's right, Rod. And that wasn't, I was going to add that, and that it doesn't have to be for today. Like whatever the plan is, it doesn't have to be for today or tomorrow or next year, but down the road, it never hurts to have that property.
No, it'll be exactly.
Yeah. So,
Can I add one thing?
yes, go ahead, John.
I just want to make a comment on the gravel parking lot.
Yes.
Before I agree that we need to have a parking lot, but before we agree to making a big parking lot there, can we look at other sites that may eliminate a shuttle bus. Like I like the idea that we could have a visitor center there someday, future meeting place, washrooms, because to me that makes sense to stop people before they get downtown. But before we commit ourselves to a shuttle bus, I'm wondering, can we not look at other sites? Like in my mind, I think it would be better if the people for paid parking are closer to downtown, that they can just walk. Because a shuttle bus in the summer, especially on long weekends, they're going to be caught in a lot of traffic. And if we can make I always think that if we make something simple, that it would be better if they can park and walk. And then we'll eliminate, maybe down the road, we do get away from traffic in the downtown core, especially if we have a parking lot that is reasonably close, if that makes sense.
Yes, any comments on that? I don't disagree with that. That sounds reasonable.
Yeah, it does. We just need the property, wouldn't we? We've got this and maybe a short-term solution to the problem.
Right.
But I do agree with you. Yes, people like to park closer. They want to see where they're going, right? Basically.
What, do you have property in mind, Todd?
Well, we
Big
looked,
Tub Road?
Yeah, Big Tub Road, yeah. There's a
did.
lot or two there.
we did look at property 2 years ago that's still available on the road back to the visitor center.
Okay,
And that property is walking distance
yes,
to downtown.
it is. Yeah. Okay, well, yes, this recommendation here is not committing us today
No.
to the gravel parking lot. It's committing us for, that we look at it in 26. So this, but yeah, I guess it's up to council, whatever they feel they will want. But the latter portion of it is, or the last paragraph is needs to be clarified how we want to approach that. So if that's fine for most people, then that's good. If you want to see something different, I mean, I'm fine with the recommendation the way it is.
I think there's wiggle room here.
Yeah.
We're not committing to
Yeah.
anything really
Yeah.
except the initial demolition.
It would be great to have parking to even get people off the side of the road, that welcome to Tobermory sign, because I can tell you if there's an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah.
Like every day you go out there, and even though it says no parking and whatnot, there are still people parking, running, only now that there's the no parking signs, they're running across the road to get their picture taken before they get into trouble. But even if we have, public parking, that some public parking there to get people off the highway, because that's certainly, they can just walk back to the sign or
Well, we can have
whatever.
that discuss. We don't have money in the budget this year for anything, but we can talk about
But
it.
if we tear down the building,
Yeah. Let's
there's
start.
enough parking just along there.
Yep.
To satisfy that need.
Yeah. I agree.
You almost move the flower pot down the road instead of taking the people to the flower pot.
The mountain to Mohammed, I got you. Yeah, but yeah, baby steps. We're gonna do baby steps.
All right. So if we're happy with the way it is, we'll just vote on it. As I said, it really is not committing us to too much today or tomorrow. So call the vote. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Other business.
We never defined though, are we, I would like to make a motion that we move ahead with the rezoning of the property that the municipality
Yeah,
purchased
yeah,
to open space.
We can, Peggy, how do you want to do it?
It's actually already in motion.
Is it okay?
It was part of the purchase agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Other business? If not, We will go to correspondence. Item A is keep the bridge clean, and that's request for some help serving chili. And then item B, that's on what we're dealing with today. That was already in the planning report, I believe. It was. And then C, D, and E is resolutions opposing strong mayor powers, which I disagree with. I know, yeah. No, I think most municipalities are not in favor of it, so it's, that's good. So all of them are for information. So Todd and Smokey. Information, call a vote, all in favor. Opposed, the motion's carried. Go to bylaws. Bylaw 2025-42 is a bylaw to authorize the petition recruitment agreement between the municipality and Dr. Claire Bodkin. Is it Amon Bodkin? And 2543 is a bylaw imposing an annual drainage rates upon land in respect to which money is borrowed under the Child Drainage Act. 2025-45, appointing bylaw officers. And 2025-46 is a confirmatory bylaw. 4 bylaws. Mover and seconder. Amon, Rod. Any questions? Call the vote. All in favor. Opposed. The motion is carried. Closed session. The council move into closed meeting with the CAO and clerk in attendance pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001. As amended for the following reasons: B, personnel matters about identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, municipal or museum coordinator position, and C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board and its proposed community center and library property. Mover and seconder, Gwen, close. Todd, Rod, all in favor. Motion carried. All right, reporting from closed, council met in closed session with the CAO and clerk in attendance to discuss personnel matters about identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, museum coordinator position, and a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and the proposed community center library property. And direction was given to the CAO. That concluded our, and we also passed the closed session minutes for what date was that?
April 14th.
Passed the closed session minutes for April 1st as well. And that concluded our discussion in camera. Motion to adjourn. Dodd and Smokey, all in favor. Carried.